Welcome to Hashtag with Navguzi Chwanuka. This is a place where we help you unravel social constructs, discuss self-development in line with mental health, emotional well-being, and everything in between that directly or indirectly affects us in the millennial world around us. If you're hearing my voice for the first time and are the kind of person who is not scared of being a better version of yourself even if it requires you to contradict who you were 24 hours ago, consider this your virtual home. I'm your host, Navguzi Chwanuka, and I cannot wait to engage with you in the various conversations. Chair, welcome to Hashtag with Navguzi. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me again.
You have returned sooner than any other guest. Sooner.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you give prizes for that?
Hey.
Yeah, I'm not pressure. It's okay.
I hadn't thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
But you've returned a lot sooner. Most of the times people return after 2 years, a year. I think the earliest that returned was after 3 months in 2021.
Right.
Yeah, we did a mental health awareness month and then we did something else in September for the suicide and dealing with grief. So welcome. Okay. Welcome back.
Thank you.
People were demanding that you return and I was like, hey, Vanang.
I'm always available to serve the people.
They're like, that was very brief. Bring her back. It didn't feel like an hour. I was like, hey, Vanang.
Right. It usually happens. It usually happens when I share my story. There's so many questions people have. And also there's only so much you can share to try and drive the point home. So I'm always readily, because I know it happens, and I'm always readily available to answer questions that people have, because people do have questions. It's true. It's a fact.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So, I don't know where do we start, because there are some questions that people had, the listeners. And then there was also your part where you suggested that a couple of people come without any understanding of what it's like to heal from an addiction. How do you tell that you have healed from an addiction? So you come on two fronts to answer the listeners' questions and also to guide us through this, understanding of what it's like to really heal from an addiction. So I don't know. I don't know where you're comfortable with to start.
I'm ready. Wherever the jabs come from, I'm ready.
So should we go over the message that I'd shared with you that came from a listener? That is Petero Kusasira Mukama. Thank you so much for sharing your feedback.
That's amazing. Sure thing. Let's dive right into
it. Do you have it with you?
Yeah, I do have some questions here with me.
Let me see. I'm trying to roll back. Oh, there were many. 8.
Yeah, there were 8 questions actually.
What was the first night like for her in her homelessness?
That's actually a very interesting question, because you see, the homelessness didn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. The first time that I believe I was, what I can say, evacuated from a sheltered environment was when my father kicked me out of our family house. And that was when I, in being a drunkard, they say drunkards have this kind of intellect, this cunning wisdom, and so in that moment I said, I can do anything, I can stay anywhere. And so that's when I packed up a few things and I started living in office where I was working. It was a digital agency, a communications agency. Yeah. And I said I can, crash here for a while until I sort out the situation. And so it just so happened I stayed there for, I did not know the gravity of what I was getting myself into. Crashing in office for a few days turned into a week, it turned into 2 weeks, it turned into a month. And eventually, actually, if the human resource manager had not come and told me that, Che, you need to get your things together, I had become comfortable in that situation. I had.
As long as no one is saying anything.
I go to the bar, drink, I come in the morning. Yeah. I had become comfortable. And, after that, I found a place to crash with a friend of mine. We started renting a house together. But even then, that didn't last long because my drinking forced me to lose my job. Then I couldn't pay rent anymore. Eventually, the person kicked me out of the house. Now, this is where the real homelessness began.
Yeah.
But I remember the first night where I was out of shelter. It was, when you're someone who's been used to the night.
Yeah.
and you're intoxicated, there was really no fear. First of all, I was drunk. I said, I'm just going to close my eyes. Next thing I know, the sun will be up.
Yeah.
I'll look for a place to wash my face, look for an internet cafe, sit, and go to Facebook inbox and text my friends and tell them, send me 20K. That was my routine. And so that's what it was. To be honest, I can't remember the first night when I was really, really homeless, but I do remember the beginning stages. I did not think at that time that it was going to stretch into nearly 4 years of homelessness on the street. Of course, there were some nights where, first of all, I couldn't access alcohol, maybe a cigarette or two, and I would just sit there at the side of the road, like at a shop on a bench, and, in that clarity, and your life is before you. There's a voice in your head telling you, Rebecca Macheli, see your life.
Yeah.
Munavudo, see your life.
Right.
You've traveled your life. You grew up eating eggs and bacon and fries and this each and every day. Now you can't even get a chapati for breakfast. See your life. And so I did have those moments. But even those moments instead made me drink more because I didn't want to think about that.
Right.
Because my reality was before me, but I didn't want to feel that. I didn't want to know that this was what my life had come to. Yeah. So the first stages of homelessness were it was uncertainty. But as time went on, you start to learn the language of the streets. You start to understand how the environment works. You start to become a part of the ecosystem. You weave yourself into that fabric. And eventually, I became a Mwanda on the streets in my own way. Yeah. Yeah.
What is
For
that?
lack of a better word.
And you survived.
Yeah, I did. I did.
They say
survival is for the fittest. The street. You don't go on the street. On the street, you leave all your English that you've spoken from Green Hill Academy, from Buddha, from St. Lawrence, from Kozi, from UCU.
Yeah.
You sit at a shop and you're asking for cigarettes and you're asking for coffee spirit in English. No way. People are going to ask you. You just start hearing people saying, you understand? That's what they say. So I had to become a part of the ecosystem. You don't speak English. There your English, you forget it. I'm being serious. You forget it. Otherwise, you make yourself an easy target for them. The same people you drink with are the ones who attack you at night when you're walking.
Wow.
So you have to you have to eliminate the threat by making it your ally. So you start speaking slang with them. When you have 1,000 shillings in your pocket, you sacrifice that 1K and you buy 2 totes of coffee spirit and you give it to them.
Wow.
To let them know, that was the street. You had to be literally, that's what being street smart is. That's what being street smart is. You read the street and see how you weave yourself into that fabric. That's how you survive on the street.
Make them your allies.
Mm-hmm.
Does she have friends that stuck with her throughout? Let me see. Does she have friends that stuck with her throughout all that she went through and didn't judge her and just never gave up on her?
Absolutely. I did have, I have a friend called Nala. She's an amazing young lady. I've known her since I was 5 years old. She really stuck with me through and through.
Yeah.
Of course, I became the nuisance that society knew. My family abandoned me. My friends gave up on me. But also, I reached a point where it wasn't that they didn't want to reach out. There's a point where I just withdrew myself. I didn't want anyone to know where I was. I didn't want anyone to know I was struggling. I didn't want anyone to know, the terrible state of my life.
Struggling with shame.
This is about 2018, 2019. I just withdrew. No one knew. You did not know where I was unless we used to drink or smoke together. It was impossible. You couldn't reach me. I never had a phone. If someone got me, my brother used to buy me phones. He would buy me a phone. In 2 days, I've sold it. You understand? Yeah. So she was that person who was there for me. She's still a lab technician, and she was always there for me. One thing I suffered with on the street is, as a woman, of course, you know how our internal structures are built. Yeah. So I would go 5, 6, 7 days more without taking a shower, like a proper shower, and also having to use the terrible bathrooms in different places. So I was constantly subjected to UTIs, urinary tract infections, day after day after day after day after day.
And you need medication.
I just got so sick of it. Yes.
So how were you handling this? And now when you speak of that, it reminds me of the part of the monthly periods.
That's the thing. If it wasn't for her, I don't know how I would have handled. Because each and every time I would get a UTI, I would go to her and I tell her, Nala, this and this and this. And then she would, she does a screen for me and she tells me, okay, now this is the UTI, this is this and that. She would give me some money sometimes. She would give me like 10K, 20K. She says, go and get these and these drugs. Or she'd give me some money for food, things like that. And so she was my bailout. Listen, she was my bailout. The times I remember in 2018 on my birthday, I drank so much alcohol. I remember I was drinking at a certain bar and people were buying me drinks. But this one time they bought me gin and I tasted it and I wanted to throw up. My gag reflex was here. And I said, okay, something is wrong. It had happened before in 2012. And I knew exactly what was going on. People were smoking around me. I was a smoker. But when I would smell the smoke, I would get so nauseated. And I said, oh my goodness, I know what this is. And the next day, I remember I drank myself silly that night. The next day I woke up. I was so nauseated. I called Nala. And I told her, Nala, I'm coming through. I'm super drunk. It was like 2 p.m., but I was still drunk, not even hungover. I told her I'm drunk, but I'm coming to one day again. Because I need you to help. I told her this is not a UTI. This is not alcohol. You need to help me. I don't know what this is. And I made my way to her and she did a test. She did everything, all the tests. And she told me, Che, you're pregnant. Yeah, she told me you're pregnant.
Oh my God.
These are the options. Yeah, she told me, Che, you're pregnant. And I said, oh my goodness. I didn't even have the time to start doing the sexual mapping of now who might this be, the mathematics. I was drunk. I said, I'm not even going to bother myself with that. There's even no option here. I told her straight in her face with my drunkenness at her workplace. I told her there's no option here. This child is coming out. The person saying this child is coming out, I don't have even 500 to buy chapati or even drinking water. And so I remember she was there for me. She was with me, not really with me, but she would check on me. Her and her husband lived on the way to the bar where I used to frequent. And so she would pass by once in a while and say, Che, how are you?
Yeah.
Are you okay? This and that. Yeah, but she stuck with me. I kept that pregnancy for 7 months until I got the money to remove it. I removed it at 7 months. Even the doctor who did the abortion almost chased me out of the clinic. He said, you are going to have me shut down forever. Like, how do you keep a pregnancy for 7 months? He had refused. He said, I'm not even going to remove the child. I'm going to give you an injection. You get contractions, you give birth at home. And that's what happened. He injected me. I got contractions. He told me I was going to get contractions in like 4 hours. Nala was supposed to come pick me, but she couldn't leave work. I called another friend who drove me home. And I got the contractions as I was walking down the stairs. I was in labor for like 8 hours, from 4 p.m. till midnight. I gave birth to that fetus. Because what they do is if the pregnancy is beyond 3 months, it becomes a risk to try and remove it in a way that is not chemical. Yeah? Because certain parts, it's grown. Now it's grown. So certain parts won't be able to come out. So they have to do double flushing and all that. And so the guy told me, this one, I can't even use physical means. This one, even the chemical, I can't. So he told me, have you ever given birth? I told him I've not given birth. I don't want to give birth. That's why I'm here. And he said, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. 7 months, like you're actually going to the 8th month almost. This is a full-grown child. Mwana Puze.
Yeah.
It's a full-grown child. And he gave me the injection on my thigh. And he said, so in 4 hours, he told me what to do, how to dispose and everything like that. And then he told me, just go home. In 4 hours, you start getting contractions. On my way down the stairs, the labor time, he said, how is this even possible?
What home were you headed to? Because now you are homeless.
Oh, okay. Now, in 2018, there's a friend of mine who I knew from bad days back in the day. And she came to some bar where I was DJing. And she said, Che, my goodness, you're not in a good shape. And I told her my situation. She said, no, carry your stuff and then come and stay with me. I stayed with her for about 2-3 months because she was staying in a very small, I can say a muzigo. But she had a daughter, but the daughter was at school, boarding school at the time. So she told me, stay with me up until my daughter comes home for holidays. So that's where I was staying at that time. Yeah. And also her, she was a Muganda. She was a party person. So I would be that's where I would be. She would leave home for like 2 weeks and I don't know where she is.
What?
Yeah. Listen, I don't judge. Because even me, I've lived my own life. I don't judge other people.
Yeah.
So I never asked questions. She gave me a place to stay. one thing I'll forever never take for granted is a roof over my head. Ever. So she gave me that, and so that's where I was staying at the time. Yeah. So I went home, and I was in labor for like 8 hours, from 4 to 12.
And when your friend dropped
I have a respect for mothers.
Did your friend wait? Did your friend wait for you to give birth?
I did it on my own, because now the friend who came to pick me up had responsibilities also. You know, she also has her own things to do. So she left me at around 8 p.m. there. And she said, "Che, my phone is on. Please call me." I was in, my goodness, I don't want to relive that labor experience. I can't. I cussed every male I knew, I cussed. That pain is unbearable. Labor pain. And I remember I asked the doctor, because I've never given birth before. I asked the doctor, "How will I know it's time to give birth?" The guy laughed and he told me, "My friend, you'll know."
What the heck?
And in 8 hours, listen, it's like every 30 minutes, every passing 30 minutes, I say this has to be the time for birth. Because there can't be any pain. There's no threshold of pain higher than this. My goodness, then the wave comes. Woo, it's like 10 times worse than the last 8 hours. By midnight, at exactly midnight is when I gave birth. And I remember saying at midnight, because I was now on the floor, I had removed all my clothes. I was on the floor. I said, if I'm dying, I'm going to die on this floor. That level of pain, that's when I said, God, Mukama, if there is any level of pain higher than this one, than this contraction I've just got, this life seems study. I actually understand when they say that there are women who die during childbirth. Because if you're not resilient, if you do not know how to withhold a certain threshold of pain, you can actually give up during childbirth. When it hit me at midnight, that's when the contractions now started to push the child out. As soon as the child came out, my body went back to normal. It's like how I am now. As soon as the child popped, boom, I was so normal. You could think I wasn't wailing and shouting for the neighbors. The neighbors came to the window to see. I was screaming in the room. I was shouting. I don't even remember what I was saying.
They didn't break in? Did they break in to help you?
No, they couldn't break in. I had locked the door. So all they could do was peep through the window. I had anyone who tried to call me from outside, I couldn't hear anything because the pain was so much. I couldn't hear anything. If anyone called me in that moment, I couldn't hear anything.
Wow. Wow. Ooh.
Yeah. No, but Nala was there for me. Even in the follow-up doctor visit, she told me, after you see the doctor, come and see me. She was there for me and she's still there for me today. We speak every day. You know, she's one of my hugest supporters. Yeah, she's an amazing person. So yeah, there are friends who did not judge me. There are those who judge. I don't hold it upon them because I don't get to decide how my actions as an alcoholic affect them. So, you know, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. There's no hard feelings, you know. So yeah.
All right. Thanks to Nala.
Mm-hmm. Amen. I love Nala so much.
Number 3. Did she ever feel like an unworthy child?
You really never stop being a child. Mm-hmm. So I really believe when I started drinking when I was 15, it was just harmless. It was something that I thought was harmless. You know, I was just being a teenager, being cool, drinking with the cool kids. But it wasn't about almost 10 years later, which was about 2015 when my father had kicked me out of the house. And now I had found residence with my friend. And it was about 5 months that had passed. And I woke up one morning and I actually realized that, you know what, it's been five or so months and my father hasn't checked on me, you know. And I remember I had a nervous breakdown that day. My goodness, I went into this depressive mode for an entire week. I switched off my phone. I didn't go to work. People were looking for me at work. And during that entire time, I was just, my goodness, I was so low.
Yeah.
Because I had this really, really close relationship with my father. And now it just hit me that, you know what, the person who loved you the most and even the person you love the most, you know, has probably given up on you. Mm-hmm. And I remember I just went onto this drinking spree that entire week. In my room, I wasn't leaving my room. I wasn't eating. It was really, really bad. And so, you know, I really keep telling people that, I keep telling people, alcohol is not sweet. So when you see somebody who's drinking a lot, find out what's going on. Find out what's going on. I know that our society has normalized it, you know, party after party. It's in our songs, it's in our brand slogans, whatever slogans they have. Check on your people.
Yeah.
You know, we say that all the time. That you check on your people, check on your people. But do we actually check on our people? some of us, the way we check on our people is all you are. That's not a good way to check on people. That's not a healthy way to check on people. And so, yes, I did feel unworthy in that moment. And instead of it actually giving me the courage to actually say, you know what, Che, this is actually ruining the relationship between you and your father, it just spurred me into drinking even more. And it was in that moment when I was drinking so much that I actually lost that job and wasn't able to, they fired me from work. Well, I fired myself because they were going to fire me. But to be honest, that's what happened in every job I had. I would fire myself because I saw the termination come. That's what would happen. I would relieve some places I just woke up one day and never went back. I just never went to work. But in all that, what was happening inside it, there was just this internal conflict inside of me. I wasn't happy with what was happening or what was around me. But at the same time, I felt I didn't have the power to change it. Or even if I had the power to change it, I wasn't ready to put in the work at the time, the emotional work. So what did I do? I just escaped from it and continued to do what it was that I was used to. Drinking. Yeah.
Number 4. What was the most important lesson or thing that the street taught her?
The most important thing that the streets taught me, I think I've already mentioned it. If I'm to write another version of the book, The Art of War, it would be rule number 1. Neutralize the threat by making it your ally.
Yeah.
It just taught me how to adapt so much. It taught me how to adapt. So I can, right now where I am, I can thrive anywhere in the world, any situation I can thrive. The second thing that it taught me was the power of free will.
Free will.
Free will is a blessing and a curse that God gave us. Somewhere in the book of Deuteronomy, he told the Israelites, I have placed before you life and death. Choose life. We have the power to choose, but our choices have consequences. And it was in those days when I was as sober as what, under the night sky, alone. Everyone has gone home, even in the Bufunda, they've closed pool table, they've put tundubare. Everyone has gone. They are not thoughts around you. There's nothing. You're alone. You and your thoughts and your choices and your consequences. And it was then that I would, my life would literally just go through my mind. Like, Che, this is where we are, And that's something that has never left me. The choices that I make in life, because I know what a little compromise did to me back in the day. Just a little compromise of thinking, you know what, it's harmless. This and this, So it taught me the power of our choices and our decisions in our life. Yeah.
And the consequences that come with it.
Exactly.
Number 5, they say that people are down. Maybe they say people who are down are a lot more kinder. I get the drill. They say people that are down are a lot more kinder and empathetic than people who think have it all figured out. Did she find that on the street? It sounds like something that you had mentioned in that episode where you say that the streets they embrace you? Something like that?
The streets are so loving.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, anything will show you love. If you're looking for love in something, you will find it. If you're looking for love in something, you will find it. Which is something, it's actually a frightening concept if you think about it. And one thing about the streets is that the streets loved me. The streets fed me. The streets bought me alcohol. The streets literally connected to me in a way that my family did not, in a way that my friends did not. They fed into the brokenness that I was feeling.
Yeah.
They feel properly, whatever it is that I needed. I would walk into a place and somebody who doesn't even know me, the person is watching a game, but I walk into a place, maybe I've been walking the whole day from Machinji to Nakulaje. I'm tired. I just enter a kafunda just to sit and pass the time. And I sit down and, a person will look over at you. He's someone who drinks every day. He knows what alcohol is. He won't ask you too much. He'll just look at you and then he'll call the waitress. And the waitress will look after you the entire night. For him, he'll have 2 drinks and he'll go. And you'll never see that person again.
Wow.
The entire night, the waitress will come. There's no English there. So, what was this and that? I would have like 20 beer, whatever I wanted to drink that night. I would sit in that place where I knew no one. She would tell me, what do you want to eat? There's street food outside. There's pork and chicken and chips. She says, you order. Yeah, an alcoholic me. Tell me why I would live that life. Tell me why I would leave the streets.
Wow.
Yeah. So the streets were very, very loving to me and very empathetic. This is actually why I've met a lot of people who turn away from the church because they get more condemnation from the church than they do from ordinary people.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually experienced that because I have experienced love. Listen, I've experienced love from the wrong place. I walk into a place and people just look at you. A person can just look at you and tell that you're a smoker. Next thing you know, a packet of Sportsman has come. The person doesn't speak to you. The person walks out. You'll never see them again. Like, it's just that. Like, people just look at you and they're like, hey, come and join us. Even if they don't know you, come join us, come sit. And you converse. But the conversations are as long as they're shallow, as they're empty. There's just alcohol. Everyone is competing who can drink more, who can. Do you understand? But
right.
You're all there bonding in your bondage. But that's what love looked like. And the streets really provided that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hooked to the streets. Literally, God had to yank me from the streets because I was not living there. I wasn't. However, bad events just kept happening that were worse than the other. But I said, Sivak Street. Imagine. It's so bad. Bondage is sweet.
When we jump to number 6, he is asking, did she deal with rejection after her conversion, stroke turnaround? That feeling of not fitting in a society that is unconsciously judgmental. It almost sounds like something that you sort of answered. Yeah, but when you returned, when you came out of this, were you welcomed with open arms?
You see, that's something that God worked on me on during that period in the lockdown. Because the lockdown period was my rehabilitation.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to come, you see, the opposite of rejection is acceptance.
Right.
And I had to come to a point of acceptance with everything that I was not okay with. And this had to happen by feeling the things that I didn't want to feel, even those things that I had shut out from my childhood, and so many things were being unmasked. And I had to come to terms with them. I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive other people. I had to seek forgiveness from people, basically making amends.
Yeah.
And so by the time 1 year and some time had passed and they said now there's no more lockdown, we can now move and interact with people. By the time I came out, I did not feel any kind of like self-loathing for myself. And so what happened is I did not feel rejected because I believe that God led me into the spaces where I needed to find love, into spaces where people were able to love me back to wellness. Because, there's something that isolation does to you.
Mm-hmm.
Isolation is good. It works on you. You come to terms with yourself, but you need to interact with people for, to deal with your social skills.
Yeah.
Because during that time of rehabilitation and when you're in your sobriety journey, there's all this guilt, shame, and condemnation that comes to you because of, things that you did. You don't even want to deal with people because you feel that they don't understand what you've gone through. And you don't want to deal with, what do they call it? Your social battery literally doesn't exist.
Right.
It doesn't exist at all. And so there was nothing I could do. God literally thrust me into a radio competition where I got into the breakfast. Like, do you understand? Threw me face first into a total church community. These are Christians. People are just like, it just became tiring for me. Although I grew into it, I'd go to work and even the security guards at the gate, good morning, how are you? And I was like, how can a person be this happy about life? Like, is it me who just has it? But I got to understand that this is what a healthy environment feels like. Healthy environments breed healthy people. And so God thrust me into spaces where I was loved. Yeah. And so rejection is something that it went away over time. Over time, it went away because right now, no one can come and tell me, Che, you can't do this. Yes, I feel like I'm a superstar. If God said I created you, you can do anything. Listen, I can do it. Rejection also happens when you reject yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. For For example, when somebody goes for a job interview, like maybe they really put in their work in this, they put their hope in it and say, this and this and this, and then they don't get it, or they are rejected or turned down. They put so much hope in it because when you get that rejection letter, they haven't rejected who you are or your ability. It's just an opportunity that just hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
But so many people take it to heart that they themselves, their being, their personality, who they are, their very existence has been shut down and been rejected. But it's just having a reframing of your mind, of understanding who you are, accepting how you've been created, what you can do, what you can't do, places where you're welcome, knowing you shouldn't be in places where you're tolerated, all those lines, those hot takes. Sit in places where you are celebrated and not tolerated. Yeah. So it's that's how. So dealing with the rejection, I was just stepping into places as the new version of me, of who God was molding me to be. So if somebody didn't like a certain aspect about me, be it about my past, be it about maybe who I am or that, it's okay. That's who they are. It doesn't work for them. It's not going to change me or my goals or the kind of person that I want to live to be. Yeah.
It's powerful. When we jump to number 7, Petero is asking whether your relationship with your dad went back to what it was like, or is it a new kind of relationship that you had to build?
I don't think that our relationship will ever go back to what it was, because there was damage that was done. A lot of time went by, almost a decade. So, the necessary conversations were had, but again, you don't get to decide how your actions affected people.
Right.
And so I had to make the necessary amends, but at the same time, I understand the effects and the consequences of what I did, and knowing that our relationship will never go back to the perfect relationship, and it's just coming to terms with that. But that's not going to deter me from living my life and being the best version of me that I can. He's lived his life. That's not going to stop me from living my life, because I know God has a purpose for me, and I'm not going to be deterred or to be slowed down because of certain opinions, because I know even the opinions that he has, some things are not true. I've heard the things he has told me, some things are not true, because there were rumors fed to him by weird family members, by people who don't know how to mind their business. But it is what it is. You can't, there's only so much you can do. And at the end of the day, I know we live in a society that's constantly, you guys, I don't know how we got to this place, telling people, you need to apologize to your children, you toxic parents. You guys, Omzade, Asigala, Muzade. A parent is a parent. We don't get to decide how our parents cope with things, because they're adults. When we were born, they were adults who had their own coping mechanism. You understand? Right now, I understand why he kicked me out of the house. He saw what happened to his late wife happening in his youngest daughter. He didn't know what to do. He really didn't know what to do. And I can't sit here and say I blame him, that wicked man. I can't. He literally did not know what to do. And so I understand that I am a child. I understand I was in the wrong. I understand that I affected my father. So many ways he was very heartbroken. It's not an easy thing for a child to waste school fees like that, 2 different universities. Then, hearing stories of your child doing this and this and this, it's heartbreaking for a father. And even him, he had his own way that he felt bouts of shame, bouts of being depressed. He's at the end of the day, when we are kids, we look at our parents like superheroes, that they're superhuman. My father is, even when they tell you go to school and draw them on paper, you draw a cape, you draw a man with a cape. My father is Superman, but they're human beings at the end of the day. And it was just coming to a point of maturity, of knowing that, this and this has happened. However, there's nothing we can do about the past, but we can recreate our future.
Right.
And actually, right now, my father, he's very proud. My father is these men who are, my father is a retired pilot. He's a man who speaks when spoken to. He's not these people who have come home and in a chai, we talk, he wakes up in the morning. He'll tell you good morning when you tell him good morning. He'll get his newspaper, switch on BBC and sit and listen. There's no banter.
Wow.
No. He speaks when spoken to. Do you understand?
Wow.
He pulls out a notepad and he doodles. He's black and white. You understand? There's no so even in knowing the kind of personality that he has, he's a very reserved person. I also know how and why he is dealing with our relationship the way he does.
Yeah.
He sees the things I'm doing. He sees me doing interviews in Nigeria. He sees my book doing rounds, my book being nominated for Vine Awards, and he says, I'm proud of you. Yeah. He says this and this. Because I know the kind of person he is. He's not going to come and say, my child, Mwana. No, that's it. He's going to say, that's it. Even when we were making amends, I poured out my heart, I cried, said, I'm sorry. After the long conversation, he just said, I love you, I forgive you. Period. Because that's who he is. That's his one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know years have passed by, he's much older, and he can only show his love the way that he knows how in his capacity. And we are just moving on in that way. And the rest, you give it up to God.
Yeah. You know, when you're answering this question, and also when I read it, I think it brought me to another question that I was like, wait a minute. When there is a person struggling with someone who is also struggling, there is a mental toll that it takes on that person. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that he came to a place of healing from that period?
Can I be honest? I'll never know.
Right.
I'll never know.
Right.
Because
that's when I was like, I think I need to have these conversations with the carers as well. Like, I had never thought about it really, but now I'm like, wait.
I will never know, because I asked myself, I'm like, did he go for counseling? Did he open up to someone? Did someone speak to him? Because he didn't speak to me. It's me who spoke to him, who came to him. Like, did he ever deal with mom's death? Did he ever deal with my elder brother's death? My elder brother died of alcohol-related complications in 2019.
Yeah.
And this is what I said. Adults people have their own coping mechanisms. Maybe his is to bottle things up and keep quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just what it is. And as I said, it is what it is.
Right.
I will never know, because he's not going to come and tell me, you know what, sit down, let's have cupcakes and let's pour out, therapy chair. With who? Captain Materi? No. We'll never know. That's the thing. We'll never know. And that's why, which is why when you get to understand people's weaknesses and people's flaws, don't hold that against them. I'm someone who believes so much in prayer. I pray for my dad. I do. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not going to go to his house and I tell him, you better talk, sir. In this year of 2023, we talk. We are talkers. No.
It's a different generation.
Yeah, exactly. We are so different. I think my dad is not a social media person. He's not. Our generation is just too loud and too open.
The personalities also matter. I think I would have asked. I can sort of push mom to speak, but the personalities also matter. Yeah, because you might find, like you say that the coping mechanisms are different. Surely, you
see me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm exactly like my mom. So imagine a person like this married a person like my father.
They always do.
I think even him, he just knows that if he even tries to break, like, he will not hear the end. He's like, it's just our personalities are just different.
Yeah.
And so I came to understand that, and I was like, you know what, it's just him. He'll deal the way he deals.
Mm-hmm.
He'll deal the way he deals. I thank God that I did not pick that from him, because one thing we need to understand is that values beget values. This is how generational patterns happen.
Yeah.
How you deal with something is how you're going to teach your children to deal with it, and that's how they're going to teach their children, and that's how patterns occur. Be it wealth generation, be it through habits, be it through whatever. Values beget values. Personalities beget personalities, things like that. And so in what I went through, I had to confront very many things. Dealing with the escapism, I had to become a confronter. And so that's something, bottling stuff up is something I'm not going to pass on to my children.
Mm-hmm.
One story I really want to hear is my mother's story. Because to this day, nobody knows why she started drinking the way she did. And as I said, adults, because now I understand, people drink to cope with things.
Of course.
And I sit and I'm like, this woman, like, she had successful businesses. She was happily married. She had beautiful children. She had a good home. What was she going through? that even her friends, she couldn't tell her friends. But what is it? That's a story I will never know. God knows whatever that was. And the funny thing is, she wasn't a bottler. She was a talker. She would, invite her friends home, bring beer, and they would talk and cook. Well, even if it's like a sack of ginners, and they would drink Belaga and cook. So I really want to know, what was she dealing with, Back to the point of coping mechanisms. Everyone has their own coping mechanisms to things. And I'm very glad that I recently graduated as a sobriety coach, and I invited in so
you
many
allow us
places.
to first clap.
So
first allow us to clap. Ish, why are you making it look light?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. So one thing that I openly deal with clients is their coping mechanism. How are they dealing with things? Because the bottle is the symptom of what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
If you remove the bottle, they're going to get something else to replace it with. And so it's coping mechanism. That's one thing everywhere that I'm invited to speak, or if I'm asked to talk to somebody, I ask them, how do you deal? What are the methods and the vehicles that you use to deal with hardship?
Yeah.
How do you develop your perceptive of pain? Because these are the things that are keeping people in bondage. Yeah. So to be honest, I forgot what the question was, but you've arrived here.
Yeah. No, but we're talking about the coping mechanisms and because I was asking you whether you found out whether your father healed, and you said you couldn't find. Yeah. So this brings us to the question and the biggest reason as to why you felt like we were supposed to return to have a follow-up episode, which I also feel like we are going to make independent of this one, because this is I didn't expect it to be this long. So the question is, has she struggled with relapses in any way? We are going to have that in a follow-up. Be sure to tune in. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Hashtag with Nabguzi Chwanuka. If you loved what you heard, make sure you subscribe to Hashtag with Nabguzi Chwanuka in your podcast platform of choice, and share it with your friends, loved ones, and everyone that you believe is affected by the millennial world around us. Also, feel free to share your insights about what connected with you on social media, and be sure to tag us. We are at Hashtag with Nabguzi Chwanuka on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter, our handle is at HTNK podcast. You can also use the hashtag HTNK in session. Catch you next week. Remember, we have the new segment coming out every Monday, Unraveling Life with Jagero, and then there is a new episode coming up on next Wednesday. Ciao.